What is that? Oh, he was a painting salesman. Look at all those. Just you can't press Alt. Your computer will freeze. I thought he dropped like a maze. Just like
fortune.
So if I were to, like, how does this world work? Like, there's
Tax
no
just
central government or anything. It's all just like feudal kind of like fiefs.
Is there? I would love to see if there's like a constant through line of all these games, of all the divinities.
I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
Because I mean, even after playing through all of Divinity Original Sin, I still, like beating a Witcher game, like I can tell you a good amount about that universe after beating a Witcher game. I can't tell you barely anything about the Divinity universe other than everyone likes to use the word source a whole lot.
Yeah, and apparently Immaculates have like control of an entire like town and the surrounding forest, and everyone just goes along with it, and it's fine. It's like a good thing.
Yeah, there's not much. I should say there's not a lot of. I don't know. It's hard to even say this, but like there's not a lot of like world building that happens. It's more that like you are a person that falls into a set of circumstances that fall within a plot within the game rather than a world building narrative.
Right. Well, hey, this is Divinity Original Sin, the enhanced edition for PC. We played through it. We played through all 109 hours through it, and we're here to tell you about it.
Massive
tell you how it went.
Isometric turn-based RPG.
It's like a C RPG, I think is the technical term for it. Different from like a Western RPG. It's technically Western, but like Western RPG would be maybe Oblivion, Skyrim, that sort of things.
Right.
And like CRPGs would maybe be, I don't know, maybe Baldur's Gate or something like that. Some sort of like top-down, turn-based, tactical.
It's kind of mixes
fantasy.
a bunch of things, but yeah, Baldur's Gate's probably the closest thing I could think. But yeah, it's like, would you consider this game open world or?
Not really, because there's a very strict path you have to walk, and if you deviate from that path, you will just run into overleveled enemies and die instantly.
Right, but hypothetically, you do have the ability to walk in any direction that you want, and it's all accessible.
Yeah. Oh, and we played it on like a tactical difficulty, which is the second highest difficulty. So for us, when you step out of bounds, you really die. But the highest one was you only get like one autosave and like permadeaths for your friends. So
no thanks. Not with the booby traps. No thanks.
We would not have lasted.
So let's describe the game. We'll have gameplay over this, obviously, but I mean...
yes. So beginning... there's to give some backstory. There's something called Source. This is like the opening cutscene of the game when you load it up. It is both the question and the answer. They describe it like The Witcher describes magic, I think. But it's bad magic. It's forbidden magic. There's like normal forbidden magic, which is like necromancy, and then there's Source, which is like a level beyond that you really should not be using this stuff. So the main characters, us, we are called Source Hunters. So we find people who use Source, and then we put a stop to that.
And so one player, if you're playing with one person, you're still playing as two people. There's always two main characters regardless, but you also have the option of that second person being a co-op player. And then this one is only 2-player maximum for co-op in the game. But
you can have you can have a party of 4, but only 2 people can actually be player characters, humans.
Right. And you pretty much have to have 4 players, or else you're just not gonna beat this game unless you're playing on like super easy mode or something. But yeah, I found it kind of interesting how they set it up, because I imagine that if you just had like a friend that like jumped in every now and then, opposed to going through the whole game like we did, you'd have a really hard time playing this game, because so much relies on you guys being at like the same skill level and the same, level of item management at the same time. Otherwise, things would just fall apart, I imagine, very quickly.
Yeah, you don't bring your character into someone else's world. You just, each person makes two characters and you just jump into the body of that second character. And then, so you're always together, technically, no matter if you drop in or drop out. So you maintain all that.
Right, okay. I thought it was kind of interesting how this game is set up, because like we were saying, it's open world, but at the same time, especially very early on, there is a very specific path that you can get through where enemies are at your level or just above your level, and you'll be able to beat them. And it's almost like a linear game at the beginning, almost like a hallway of enemies that you have to get through. Eventually, we got to points later on where we could we jumped ahead and we realized that we had jumped ahead and we went back and did easier stuff. But early on, it's like a open world game, but it's very linear in execution.
Right. So we're source hunters. We're fresh off the boat. We're here to solve a murder of someone named Councilman Jake, who has been murdered by Source. That's what the forensic evidence points to, a murder by Source. So we get there, we do a long series of events to even get in the door of the murder room, I think that is. And we get there and we touch something like a stone, a star stone it's called, and we get instantly zapped to this place called the End of Time. And there's some imp here named Zixax, Z-I-X, Z-A-X, something like that. He tells us where we are at the end of time, straight out of Chrono Trigger. And he, I guess, tells us some plot. It was 100 hours ago, so excuse me if I don't remember all this with perfect clarity. We need to save the world, apparently. He shows us this tapestry, the tapestry of time, and it says the starstones you collected, kind of restore this. And you need to collect more of these starstones, or else time will be unraveled and fall apart, and all of existence will fall apart. So that's your new job to do. So he sends us back, and we still have to solve this murder. Everything's interconnected. Every kind of subplot kind of leads into another section of the main plot. So
the plot kind of reminded me of something of Watchmen or something, where it starts off as simple as a murder and then it grows to absolute, epic proportions and scope, with all these interlinking histories and stories and everything. But
right, everything centers around this one room. Every main character is there or connected to it somehow. And we just are thrown in the middle of it, and we just have all the tools we need to save the entire world because we were solving a murder in the right place at the right time.
And then we go and we fight monsters and orcs and skeletons and zombies.
We end up solving everyone's problems. I think we end up killing every monster in the game. There's no a random spawns. It's just every enemy is set there by design, and you just go through them all.
Everyone's hyping up. I can't remember his name right now. Maybe you can, but everyone is hyping up this bad guy, he's going to be the final boss. And then you're 20 hours in, and you face him, and he's much more powerful than you are. And you go, okay, well, maybe he's gonna this is gonna be one of those deals where he defeats us, and then we come back, but. No, you just have to deal with the challenge and beat him. And that was
his name is Brachus Rex.
Yeah, Brachus Rex, that's right.
He's the Source King.
And he sounds like the final boss, but he's not even close. But it was something I liked a lot in this game, was that it wasn't afraid to kick your ass. And it was probably one of the funnest elements of this game was that you run into a lot of situations where you're okay, this looks completely impossible, and you go through death after death after death, and eventually you come up with a strategy that's strong enough, and you can defeat a seemingly impossible foe, which I think is a sign of a good RPG mechanics.
Especially on tactical mode. I don't know how it is on easy difficulty, but that's what we had to deal with. Multiple deaths for almost every battle. Even the simplest ones, especially the ones when we were just starting out.
Yeah, early. I remember it was a major milestone the first time we had actually beat a battle without dying. That was a major hump to get over, and I think that was probably like 6 or 7 hours in when the first time we had done a battle without dying first.
Yeah. So we meet this red woman called Leandra, and she's like the boss of all this enemy faction called Immaculates. And they're all like sorcerer. Oh, that's what it's called. The sorcerers. Get it? Because it's like sorcerers.
Yeah, not
There's
sorcerers.
like regular
sorcerers.
Yeah, there's a distinction because like everyone can use magic, and then there's like normal sorcerers, but these are sorcerers. So sorcerers. Pronounce the U. So she gets like mixed in with this, like she's a suspect or like she's doing evil things with Source, and she's related to this murder somehow. We find out she actually is. She's in cahoots with the murdered guy who like gets resurrected as a zombie or something. I don't know. There's a long thread of like stuff that happens here. But eventually she has a plan, and the focus shifts. We have to stop her plan. And she just wants to destroy the world. She wants to summon that Source King, Brachus Rex, who we deal with.
It seems like the plot twists and turns about probably 4 or 5 times in the game where you have your primary objective completely switches. But from the time that I guess a little bit after you get to the end of time land, you are told about the Source Dragon, right?
The Void Dragon.
And that's eventually what you're going to get to. So from then on, you're no longer fooled on who the final boss is going to be. You're just waiting for that dragon to show up.
Yeah, and that's her end goal. She wants to summon this dragon, release this dragon, or something like that. She just wants everyone to die. She wants everything to return to void and become nothing.
She has the Wesker motivations.
Yeah, the world. I think she says like, "I'm not trying to harm you, like only to kill you or something like that." like she thinks the world would be better if there was no world.
Are you saying that the world would be a better place?
The world would be a better place. So that's a Resident Evil 6 reference. You guys got that. You guys are our fans. You know that. But so a bunch of stuff happens. We get our first cutscene, I think, like 50 hours in.
Oh yeah, we were thinking way deep in this thing. Yeah, it was safe to assume that there were no cutscenes in this game at all, other than walls of text that are spoken to you in dialogue, which is impressive because how much dialogue is in this game. It's all fully voice acted, which is really cool. But
like a Kickstarter stretch goal, these were the cutscenes. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's
they just
what it felt
shoved them in at the last moment.
Because we were like 50 or 70 hours in when we got cutscene number 1 in the game, like other than the intro cutscene.
Yeah, you every time you collect a Starstone, which you do on your journeys to stop all these bad people with bad plans, you get like a fragment that gets restored in the tapestry of time, and that leads us to remember something about our past, or why we have these special abilities to like touch starstones to get warped places like that.
And this tapestry of time is a yellow, or I guess it starts off a blank wall, and you fill the wall slowly in. It looks like, just from getting the first one, it looks like you're going to have like 5 cutscenes in the whole game, or something around there. You can see how far you've progressed in the game just due to looking at this wall. Yeah,
it's I think the first one we discover a little about like who we are and like what the world was before. We were apparently guardians of... Well, first of all, there's this great war against the Void Dragon. I think like the gods made everything and the Void Dragon and said like, have at it, this is your universe, go crazy. So the Void Dragon wanted to destroy everything. We, like normal humans, stepped up and stopped it. I think we're normal humans all the time. And then,
none of this is in the game, by the way.
Yeah, this is cutscenes.
This is all pre-game narrative.
Yeah. Backstory. And we defeated it. We were generals. We were the heroes. We saved existence from this void dragon and locked it inside of a box called the God Box. And we are the ones who guard this box for all of eternity. That's who we were. We were the Guardians. But then, as you progress through the game and get more Starstones, you learn more of this story. You got like, it was a bit of an Adam and Eve kind of like a serpent allegory, because the game is called Divinity, Original Sin. Of course there is. So there's this other thing called the Trife, and there's this other girl called Astarte. And the Trife talks to Astarte and tells Astarte to, distract us so that she can, I don't know, open the box or something. This is the Trife's plan, not Astarte's. Astarte gets seduced. She's like the allegory for Eve, and I guess we're the allegory for Adam, I guess. So we get distracted. We like look at each other, and that distracts us long enough to, the box is open, the void dragon comes out, and we are so distraught by our failure that we rip our threads from the tapestry of time, which is apparently like a physical thing that you can just like go up and grab. We throw the like fragments of the tapestry to Earth, and they become starstones, which is why we react with them. And then we become like lost to time. Like we evaporate and become, we don't even know who we are. We are lost to the fabric of the universe. But we get reincarnated as source hunters, and we just randomly stumble across the starstone, and that starts us on our journey to remember who we are and right what was wrong, to solve our mistake.
So yeah. Eventually we get to the Void Dragon, right? I mean, and we fight her with both sisters, right? Astarte and Leandra.
Leandra isn't, well, like she's I don't think we ever, we talked about her. Yeah, both sisters. There's another sister called Akara. There's a whole thing with like a soul forge, and like the one sister becomes two. That's a whole nother like subplot that there's a lot of those. There's a guy who becomes a cat.
10-hour long game.
There's a lech, not a lich, a lech. There's
this is subplot after subplot after subplot, and this it's just, this game is absolutely massive, and I don't think. Well, I guess we'll talk about this when we get into mechanics, but the open nature of this game is intimidating, to say the least, when starting out.
The final climax of this game, it's you versus the Void Dragon, and Astarte's there too. She has been fighting this dragon, apparently, for like all this time, for eons and eons, and she joins you for the fight. She's absolutely useless. She dies in like 2 hits. It's like an escort quest as the final boss. You have to keep healing her and not let the Void Dragon kill her, or else it's instant game over.
Yeah, the final boss is a son of a bitch, because you personally have been working, building up your characters, making them strong, making them able to take many hits, and giving them all these abilities and giving them all these fancy armors that you've customly equipped. And then you get it to the final boss, and you have to protect someone with none of that. You have to protect someone for the entire final boss battle, who is utterly defenseless. Does she even move? I don't think she even moves.
She doesn't move. No, she stays right there.
Yeah, she just sits there and takes whatever is hurting her. And it's up to you to protect her, not only to protect her, but to fight and defeat the final boss as well.
She has no defensive moves. She has no offensive moves. All she does is like heal and buff the other characters. She doesn't do anything for herself.
Yeah. I feel like it's an interesting way to make a genuine challenge, because I feel like the final boss was a genuine challenge. But I don't think it's challenging for the correct reasons. Like, I feel like it would have been more appropriate if there was a battle where we had to just constantly like use buffs and debuffs and everything. Like, you had a boss that was constantly like, throwing debuffs on you and buffing himself. I think that would have made for an interesting boss battle, but that's not really the case. You have a boss that spawns enemies, and you have to protect a woman while like simultaneously getting a strategy that attacks him at the same time.
It's like a non-traditional like you haven't been doing that for the whole game. There's like one escort quest in the entire game. And this is like a skill set that you haven't been like training for and mastering like you have just like normal combat. It's an entirely different just challenge they throw at you at the final hour and says, okay, now do this. It's like completely new.
Yeah, and it feels a little cheap, especially for the fact that everyone in your party could be killed and then revived or resurrected.
Not her.
But not her. The second she dies, game over. That's never been a mechanic before, but now it is. Good luck.
Yeah. So that's the story. That's Divinity. Now you know. Now you're ready to play Divinity 2, which is also kickstarted and coming out soon. It's in early access right now.
Yeah,
at the time of this recording.
We'll be getting to that eventually.
Yeah. We're gonna take a nice long break, though. I don't think we can handle 2 Divinities back to back.
No, I don't think anyone can. There's a lot of Divinity. But
so, that's a nice segue to our discussion of the game mechanics. There's a lot. This game is dense, 109 hours. There's the thing I had about it, that all of it, all of the story, besides those like 5 cutscenes that you get from 75% of the game onward, it's all presented in text, in dialogue. It's voiced, but it's just people talking to you. It's reading text boxes. It's clicking on dialogue choices, which I don't think this game pulls off as well as it could, or in compared to other games. I don't know if it's like the pacing of it, or like...
I'm thankful that it's all voiced. I mean, if this was all text boxes, I mean, it would have taken probably 1 hour before we said, screw it, and skipped all plot, all story and everything, and couldn't tell you what the plot of this game was at all.
Yeah, I checked out mentally at like 10 hours in. I stopped caring about like the plot entirely.
Yeah, but I still am glad it's all voiced, and the game definitely deserves credit for that. But yeah, at the same time, the voice acting, even though it's there, is slow. Like, dialogue is said in a slow fashion, typically, in most cases. And then on top of that, it's still presented in like a classic RPG fashion, where you'll say something small, one sentence to someone, and they'll present to you a whole entire diatribe of their life, or gigantic walls of text are just thrown at you, and you're just expected to sit there and listen and absorb, when this has been happening to you for over like 80 hours. It's like eventually it's inevitable, whether you're playing the single player or multiplayer, you're going to be skipping through this stuff eventually, because there's just too much there.
There's a threshold of how much any one man can take before he says, I can't. For Jahan was the worst example of this. Like, every time he was a horrible racist. He did not like demons. So every time we like interacted with a demon in some way, he'd have something to say about it. And he'd come up with essays, like theses about like walls of text about like how his biases are or whatever, his backstory. Like, we knew his whole life story, unprompted, unsolicited. And we didn't care.
Time when I talked to a dog near the beginning of the game, and he gave me a whole entire life story about dogs because I had talked to one. I really like the conversation that we had about the broom, or no, the broom, the shovel. Yeah, brilliant.
We picked up a shovel and we used it, and then like you get to talk to each other. You're 2 characters. You have like co-op conversations, which is, I wish more games would have that.
Yeah, but really cool idea, really cool mechanic.
Like, you say, like, oh boy, I really love this shovel. And you get a chance to say, like, agree or disagree. And, like, every time you do that, you have different conversations about different things about the game. And it gives you traits, which can, like, give you buffs, certain buffs, depending on, like, how consistently your character acts. Like, you could get the romantic trait if you err on the side of, like, love and stuff like that. And you can become immune to like certain debuffs. So it gives you a combat benefit to acting a certain way. But it's ridiculous how it's presented. It's like having a conversation of shovels gives you a bonus in battle. Like, oh, I really love the shovel. No, I hate it. +1 to pragmatism or something like that.
And there were examples towards the latter half of the game where this actually affected the story overall.
Oh,
and
right.
affected points where not only affected places that we could or could not talk our ways in or out of, but also, yes, an essential character within our party, we had to completely forego that whole side quest. I don't know if it's a chain of side quests or just one, but we had to completely forego that entire plot line, a major plot line in the story, because we were not given any warning of what we needed, but we had to, what was it? We needed independence. We had not raised the independence trait by disagreeing with each other enough.
Yeah, we were too obedient, and that influenced our party member and made her want to be obedient to some other guy and like leave our party forever, and then she'd just be gone for the rest of the game, and we'd have to like fight her and kill her.
Which we tried to do and couldn't, because she had been one of 4 major pillars of our party, and now she was turned against us, so now we have 3 pillars, and all of us have essential functions that we have all ironed out and worked out over dozens of hours, and now one of them turns against us, so it just wasn't worthwhile. We just said screw it and skip the thing.
We were a 3-legged chair, and Bear Daughter could not complete her quote-unquote loyalty mission because we weren't independent enough. We made the wrong choices.
I think it's worth talking about how open this game is and whether that works to its benefit or its detriment. Very early on in this game, it's obvious how open-ended this game is. I mean, you can do anything, and it seems pretty clear that you're going to be able to just completely screw yourself if you're not careful. Like if you saved in the wrong points, or you got your characters stuck somewhere, like it seems like you could definitely completely screw your file and have to start the whole game over. Luckily, we didn't have to. We definitely had to revert plenty of times to previous saves, especially during the puzzle and tomb sequences. But I don't know, what do you think? Do you think that it works to the game's benefit or the game's detriment? I mean, you look at something like The Witcher, which is very open-ended as well, but it's not in the same sense where you could just totally screw yourself, you know?
I think that it gives you the illusion of being open, but it's still kind of closed because there's that correct path that you can walk, and you won't get killed by enemies that are too high level for you to face, especially on the tactical difficulty. And it gives you like a big open map, like all of it's grayed out. You feel like you can go everywhere and do anything, and you can if you could survive theoretically, but it gives you the illusion.
I guess the example that I'm thinking of is the Star Stones at the end. And this was a major point for me where this game was very high up for me in terms of like what I thought of it in terms of rating. And then we ran into the Star Stone segment of this game, and it definitely was a huge drop. I was like, oh, this is not okay.
Yeah, there's a mechanic. Gate at the very end of the game. There's a door that will not open unless you collect 14 out of 15 possible.
But it doesn't tell you that. In the world. It doesn't tell you this.
Don't know until you get to that door, and it says, "Whoops! You need to go back and scour the entire world for those things you missed because you need those."
And no one has ever told you the whole. You know they're important, but no one in the whole game has ever told you. You're going to need to keep these things for that final door, or else it's not going to open. You're not going to be able to face the final challenge of the game unless you have a certain number of these Star Stones. And it's not like these Star Stones are just a rare item. There is a very specific, limited number of these items in the entire world. And we didn't have enough of them. We didn't have enough of them. So the game just says, well, figure it out. And you're just, I think we spent 2 days just looking at walkthroughs and tracing our steps and searching all the stores, making sure we hadn't sold them or something. And I think that's what I'm referring to when I say too open-ended, like just a little too much freedom. where
you can
you
attack.
can just screw yourself. You can just be done.
I think you could have. I don't know if it's possible to like brick your like progress early in the game if you like attack the wrong like quest giver and then he's hostile to you for the rest of the game and you just can't progress, because you can do that. You can attack everything. We went back and like attacked level 2 fishermen when we were like level 19 just because we could, and like that's probably game breaking. You can like give those necessary items away to people and then like throw them off cliffs and then you'll never see them again because you can do that. It's like real life. I thought I had played RPG before, but this is the game that now I know what RPGs are. I've played this game.
This takes to a whole other level.
Like
it's true. Like, and that was the scary. That was the scariest part. It was just though we found out the thing about the Starstones, and we just said, what if at some point we just weren't paying attention, and one of those hundreds of times we visited different vendors, one of us just saw it on there and clicked it along with all our other junk and sold it without thinking. It's just, and that would just be it. You'd be like, you wouldn't even be able to progress until you had found that vendor again.
Yeah, some random vendor in like the first town. We went back and checked. We like checked the inventories of all the vendors. They had all of our like plates and spoons and like paintings that we had stolen from other people. Yeah, like, sold to them. We looked through all that.
And I think that's worth mentioning how open-ended. Like in the beginning of this game, we would play around with the mechanics where one person would distract like an NPC character by talking to them, and the other character would go into sneaking mode by hiding in a bush and then steal all their paintings and their silverware and all their valuables in their house, and then we stop talking to them and then go and sell all this stuff to make money. It's one of those games, it's very like Skyrim-esque in a way.
And another thing, the puzzles, I don't think we there were more than one solution to, I think, any puzzle you could solve in the game. And I don't think we did a single one of those puzzles the correct, intended way. I think we
probably
like, cheesed
maybe one or two we did fair and square, but some of them you couldn't fudge your way through, but 90% of the time and I don't think that's cheating, and I don't think the game developers didn't intend it for that, because there were plenty of times that we would run into where we go, oh, the developers thought of that cheese method and said, no, you can't. You just simply can't do that. We're not going to let you do that. And with the puzzles in particular, we would always find a way to like cheese our way through, where you throw a teleporting crystal somewhere, or one player goes invisible and runs past all the booby traps. But I don't think that's not what the developers intended. I think the developers intended for there to be like a dozen ways to beat every puzzle, which I kind of liked.
Right. There's a lot of things depend on you having either special skills or like the tools necessary. There's like puzzles where you have to light something on fire, and that depends on you having like a fire skill. And if you didn't put points into any of your characters to use fire skills, you would just have to have like a scroll or something. And there's no other way to do it. I don't know how that part of the game would have been passed if we didn't have like the fire spell when we needed it. Stuff like that happens multiple times throughout the game. There's like a skill that you can use to like walk over like elemental traps on the ground. There's like lava, which would kill you instantly if you walk on it. And if there's a skill you can use, and you can just run past it. And so if you have that, you could bypass a lot of the puzzles that way. Other times you have to like sneak by these statues that look at you, and then they spawn lava if they see you. So I think that's one of the intended ways. You have to sneak past that. And sometimes they'll give you like a box to hide behind. So you have to like move the box, then you have to like sneak behind it and like keep doing that. So you're out of the statue's range of vision, and then
or you could just have a character with invisibility and just run
that's
past
what we
the
did.
Thing. Yeah,
we either like had you go invisible and then you like ran past it, or we used a teleport spell to move the statue out of the way so that it wouldn't see us. It was like in the corner or something, and that's how we passed a lot of the puzzles too.
So before we move on, I wanted to talk about the turn-based nature of the game. First of all, do you think the game would be better off as... Do you think this was the best way to implement this type of game? Is this way they did the turn-based RPG where it's not tile-based, but limited number of ability points. You can only move a certain distance and you can only do a certain number of moves within a turn.
Yeah, this was novel to me. I hadn't played, I don't think, any games like this. I've just been used to like Western RPGs where you can just like either it's real-time combat or it's like FPS style combat, but with like a sword and magic. So this was a joy for me to behold. I hadn't really sunk my teeth into any types of this game before, so I enjoyed it.
I think this game makes a strong argument for turn-based still having a place in modern gaming. I think JRPGs that typically still have turn-based gaming is very much like the old Final Fantasies, and kind of done that way, where it's like, this could really just be done in real time. Like you're just healing yourself and attacking and attacking and attacking and healing yourself and doing magic occasionally. But in this one, you're coming up with very tactical strategies and moves where you're shuffling through your inventories. You're picking like very specific items to turn the tide of battle around, like within one turn. Like things get super tense and you need to find a way to make things turn around fast. Otherwise, like you can foresee that you're all going to lose. I think the mechanics were actually very strong here. Not to say that there weren't problems in the system itself, namely with the way that you target enemies. I think that could have been improved upon.
Yeah, everything, they had a weird mix between like I don't want to say like physics based, but like the opposite of tile based, like free movement, like full 3D, like precision based movement and combat, and then they still had like kind of tile mechanics that were kind of hidden. So if an example, there's like a poison blob environmental effect, and you can't tell whether or not you're in that blob or not. Mm-hmm. It's a binary thing. You either are in it or you're not. There's no two ways about it. But you can't visually see the boundary between safe and unsafe. If it was tile-based, that would not be a problem. You can clearly tell, oh, this tile is dangerous. I should not go there. But even like when walking from one place to another, you get a little like dotted cursor to see your intended path. But sometimes that may or may not line up with like the hazards. So you might unintentionally walk into something. Or even just targeting enemies, you have to put your mouse on their hitbox, which is like tied to their mesh. And sometimes they have animations, like idle animations or attack animations. And if they move when you click, you will hit the ground instead and you will waste your turn. And that killed us a couple times because they just happened to like do a jumping animation and then we would miss. It's not like a Platinum Games, like Devil May Cry. You need perfect precision for your movements. It's not supposed to be that way. It's a tactical RPG. It's supposed to be tactical about it.
That's worth talking about because of how often that happened too. Was that you know exactly what you're doing, you click the move that you want to do, or you press the number, and then you click on the enemy just to find out that the enemy's idle animation like took a step backwards at the very moment right before you clicked, and now you're spending your turn walking instead of walking towards your enemy instead of doing your move attacking it. And the number of times that happened, it was just, it's impossible to say that's not a problem because it certainly was for how the frequency that it occurred. Do we want to talk about the nature of science in this game and how things react to one another?
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of elemental effects. I think there's 4 base elements. There's earth, there's water, there's electricity, which is air, and there's fire. So, but electricity and... So I'm confusing this because it's confusing in the game. Water and air are kind of ambiguous as to what they refer to. There's electricity, which is technically like an air move, and then there's like ice, which is sometimes an air move, sometimes a water move. I'm 100 hours in, and I'm not sure like what everything is and like how everything reacts. The enemies are the same way. I still don't know like if fire is weak to water or if like earth is weak to air. I don't know. The elemental effects on the ground, if you like, they combine in cool ways sometimes. If you like cast water on fire, you make smoke and then you can't see through it, and so like a mage would be blind and he can't use any of his spells because he can't see where he's aiming. So that's pretty cool. Then they get weird. Like you'll end up with clouds of static. I don't know how they happen, but
yeah, and then strange things always seem to occur when you kill skeletons with different elements.
Some enemies like barf poison.
Sometimes, I thought the system of elements was very cool, but the problem was that even after over 100 hours of playing the game, I don't think either one of us could even come close to understanding what reacts to what in what proper way. Like I can tell you a few combinations. I could tell you that fire and a poison gas is going to make an explosion, but I can't tell you what's going to happen when you hit a skeleton with a poison arrow. I still can't tell you that because it's almost random what it seems like, but it's not. There's clearly like this science going on behind the scenes that there's a whole system thought out, but there's nothing to ever explain that to you.
Yeah, and like
it's not concise enough for you to just understand through playing. It's so dense that there's too much to actually start saying, okay, this is going to do this.
Yeah, we were fighting new enemies like 100 hours in, that enemies that we had never seen before and didn't know how they react to different combinations, like what their weaknesses and strengths were. So I don't know if that's good game design or bad design if you cannot figure out like what the game is doing after playing it the whole way through.
And at certain points, it would seem like, okay, this is Pokemon rules. Like you got a fire monster, water is clearly the weakness. And then other times that would just go out the window altogether. It would be like, okay, a fire monster and water doesn't seem to be doing any damage of significance.
Yeah, there were ghosts, I think, like, you can't tell just by looking at a ghost that it's an ice ghost. You use an ice move on it, and it's immune to just ice magic. It doesn't take any damage from that. How was I supposed to know that? Are ghosts like made of ice? Is that how ghosts work in this world? I just don't know. Like certain enemies have blood and can bleed. You might be able to like tell that just by looking at, okay, that's made of flesh and blood. I can make that bleed. Certain other ones can't, but they can get like, they don't have blood, but they can get poisoned. They can get diseased. That's another debuff. There's so many debuffs in this game. Like, you don't know what is immune to, weak to, strong against what 100 hours in. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It keeps you on your toes. You're always learning, quote unquote, learning new stuff. You'd have to take like a 4 college credit course to understand fully what this game is even trying to tell you. But we were never bored. We never figured out anything about the game.
So as a whole, what do you think of Divinity Original Sin?
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with this game genre, so I'm not sure how it's supposed to go. I had fun. I feel that like the plot and stuff kind of dragged it down. So there's too much reading, voice acted, but reading is not a cooperative activity. When I played it with you, I didn't feel like I wanted to read all the text because I'm like, are you bored with this? I'm getting bored with this. I don't know if I should just like stick it through or just skip through these things because I want to get back to the game, the fun part. I don't want to read all this stuff. But, and that went on for 100 hours worth of dialogue that we just had to skip through most of the time. But if it was more like cutscenes, more accessible, more like weighty stuff that we cared about and not 100 different subplots going on at the same time, maybe I would have felt more invested in it. But there was just so much that I didn't really feel invested in the world or anything. The gameplay was fun. Like 25% we actually spent in gameplay. The other 75% was story, inventory management. There was a lot of that, like buying and selling and buffing our characters and playing dress up.
Seemed like there were multiple days where we spent the entire play session in towns, just item management.
Yeah. 3 hours worth of items management and talking to NPCs and doing like puzzles and stuff like that.
So overall, what would you rate Divinity?
I'd rate it a 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 Jakes.
I think it was a great game, extremely dense. And I think just from the offset, I think we called it immediately. We just said, this is a massive endeavor we're getting into. And it certainly was. This massive game. Just absolutely huge. And it's worth commending for that. But yeah, I think the story's a little overly complicated. I think it suffers a little bit from, I call it Final Fantasy syndrome, where you throw made-up words in the player's face and expect them to understand what all the made-up words mean. There's not enough of a fish out of water element where things are explained to you. Simple things are explained to you where they need to be. Even right now, I still can't even properly write a definition of what source is. And I had that said to me about 500 times during the course of the game. But
it's both the question and the answer.
Right, yeah. But yeah, overall, it's a fantastic game, and I'd recommend it to anyone either playing by themselves or with another person. But I'd say if you're playing with another person, it's probably even more fun. The game definitely had glitches. There was a whole play session where I was free from combat, and we managed to get through a whole boss because I didn't ever have to engage in combat, and I could freely heal and hit people. So, I mean, we definitely ran into a fair share of glitches. It was not a completely bug-free, polished to a mere sheen game, but overall overall it's very polished, and overall it's a very high quality. It's not like this is I don't think the game ever crashed for us.
No.
I think it was once I disconnected, and I don't know if that was my fault or what. We stayed connected on Discord, so I'm not sure. But overall, great game with problems. But I think in the overall scope of it, the problems are minor to the game overall, because I would recommend this to anyone else. I will give this 4 spoons at the end of time out of 5.
Oh, and this was a Kickstarter game, so that's pretty cool. It's raised by the fans. It's a long-running franchise, which we didn't know about before we started playing this game. This is probably
one of the highest reviewed Kickstarted games that have actually released. It seems like these Kickstarter games have this horrible curse of being in development hell and then releasing to horrible reviews.
Yeah.
Looking at Mighty Number 9 or Ukulele, which got very mediocre reviews.
Both had scandals with their respective audiences.
Right. And then you have I don't even know if you call it a nightmare situation anymore, with something like Star Citizen, which is coming out this year. Get ready for it. Get ready for it to come out.
And they're doing Divinity 2. They're kickstarting that. I think it's already funded. It's in early access on Steam.
Yeah, I think the 2 most successful Kickstarters I can think of are Wasteland 2 and this game. So apparently isometric RPGs are the way to go. And Pillars of Eternity wasn't a Kickstarter too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so apparently isometric RPGs, that's what you do if you have a Kickstarter.
It's good that you can't tell that if it's a Kickstarter game. We didn't know until we looked it up. It's just a normal game. But that's a good thing if you can bring that high amount of quality without making it seem like it's a shamble or an early access early squirt. Then
no, in a lot of ways, yeah, this seemed almost superior to a AAA game that you get today. I mean, you never hassled for any of the DLC crap or microtransactions. No, buying Jahan a new robe that costs you $1.50 or anything like that. It's just a massively large, complex RPG that is not afraid to screw you over if you're not careful.
With mods, and this game has mod support, Steam Workshop support. I'm seeing full conversion mods that bump it up to a whole nother level of difficulty past what we did. And good done. For
Larian Studios.
Oh, Larian Studios for making all that happen.
Making all the Divinities.
Yeah.
Even the originals, which I've never played any of, but
yeah, apparently
I'm a fan now.
2009. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to play the second one eventually.
Yeah, eventually we're going to get to the second game. I'm actually looking forward to it, but yeah, I'm also looking forward to a nice long break from Divinity. But well done, Larry, and you've made a fantastic game.
Yep. Well, that's it for us. I'm Oxidus. This is Plasmius. No, I got that wrong. I'm Plasmius. You're Oxidus. Yeah, our names are so similar. I've made that mistake so many times.
Yeah, we were born with the names, so it's easy to mix up and forget.
Yeah. And we're Megabusters, so see you next time.